Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be my late October wrap-up. I've been in a bit of a slump lately, so there aren't that many reads for October. I did quite a bit of rereading, so I won't be reviewing those. Overall, my reading was still down, even including those rereads. Now, thanks to the 75 book challenge in November, I'm doing quite a bit better and I've already finished a few books. So I'll let you know about those when I do my November wrap-up or half wrap-up. But let's get started. First is a comic, The Key Suspect by Meg James. This I picked up at a local art fair type situation that I was vending at, and did I ask which of the three people there was the author or talk to them about it at all? No, I have social anxiety. The author of this has ADHD, and it's kind of a metaphor / straight up comparison of what someone with ADHD would do if they had been assigned to clean the toilet and are having that sort of wall between them and what they've been asked to do that a lot of people with ADHD have, sometimes people with autism as well, where they'd rather do a much more unpleasant thing to avoid it. And so this is about a sort of goblin creature stealing a key to the basement, which is the other option that this person could clean instead of the toilets. And so they chase him into the sewers and solve sort of magical sewer problems rather than just cleaning the toilet, which would have been less gross and faster. And I think it's a really fun way to talk about that issue that makes a lot of people's lives a lot more difficult in a kid-friendly way, but in a way that makes sense to adults as well. Very cute illustration style as well. And I'm going to link below where you can get it, because I don't think it's on Goodreads. Then we have a couple of audiobooks. One was The Broposal by Sonora Reyes, who has become one of my favorite authors. The last few of their books that I've read in the last 6 months or so have been like, yep, this is a favorite author. And this was no different. So this is about a couple of roommates who've been best friends since grade school. One of them needs citizenship, kind of in constant risk because the job that he's able to find have been the type with racist bosses who threaten to call the cops / ICE on their Latina employees. And so best friend is also Latina, though passes for white, is a fair amount lighter skinned, has citizenship, and so he offers to have a fake marriage with his best friend to get him citizenship. I apologize for not remembering their names. I did read this at the beginning of the month. Let's go with character 1 and character 2 in the order that I introduced them. Character 1 has thought that he's straight his whole life. He just mysteriously hasn't ever had feelings for a woman, even though he's dated a few at various times. Whereas character 2 is out as bi and is in a toxic relationship, specifically an abusive relationship. It's not really toxic both ways. It's just she's abusive to him at the beginning of the story, and he's broken up with her multiple times because of her behavior, but he always gets back with her because she basically just acts like they're back together, and he's too afraid of being alone to fully reject her, until at the beginning of this book she asked him to choose between continuing to be best friends with character 1 and staying with her, and he chooses character 1. And finally, when she makes that ultimatum, that's what's able to make him finally break it off with her for good. Character 1 also has a lot of family difficulties. He basically moves to the States to have a better home life away from his parents because his mom particularly was putting him in danger because of her addictions. And so part of the story is also about him reconnecting with his dad and coming to terms with the fact that his mom could have been someone else, and for a little bit of his childhood he knew her as someone else, but she was never going to be the person for him that he needed. So that was really powerful as well. But a lot of it was just I really like these characters. Sonora Reyes does characters in such a way that I really like a lot of them. I like the main characters, but also the side characters. They're really interesting, and there's a lot of sweetness. Even though a lot of characters are going through difficulty, they really try to be there for each other. And the romance, of course, ended up being really sweet as well. 5 stars. Then another audiobook was Daughters of the Bamboo Grove, and this was recommended to me in a list of books in Genocide Bad about other genocides that have happened historically to learn about and to spread awareness of, so that we are aware that genocide is actually a really unfortunately common thing and that it happens all over the world to all sorts of peoples, and that it's usually related to monetary gain, which was definitely true in this case. This falls under cultural genocide, a variety of which is when you take kids, kidnap them basically from their born to parents, and they end up being raised by people of a completely different culture. In the case of the US, doing this to indigenous children, the kind of purpose, one of the purposes was cultural genocide, because they wanted to get rid of indigenous people's connection to the land so that they wouldn't fight back for it. Whereas in this case, this was in China between 1990 and 2010, especially between 2000 and 2010. Kids were kidnapped, especially from parents who were poor, who were monolingual, and especially who had like regional accents, so it was hard to communicate with people in other regions of China, and people who had some other legal trouble or something, or some disability that made it easy to kidnap children from them. And the purpose wasn't necessarily to get rid of their culture, the purpose was to make money. But the effect was that about 10,000 kids were kidnapped from their families and trafficked to US and other Western adoptive parents, for the money. There were all sorts of fees that were like official, but there was also about $3,000 per child that was sort of smuggled between the parents and the orphanages where they were held, between being kidnapped and being sold to the American parents. It's really quite harrowing till about the 50% mark, after which it becomes a story that's mentioned in the subtitle of 2 twins who were separated. One was easier to kidnap than the other one, so they just kidnapped one of them and sold her to America, and the other one was raised by her immediate family in China. And this reporter who did investigative reporting and published a report back in 2010 or so, which really raised the spotlight on this, her investigative journalism led her to this family in China, and she actually figured out where the twin was in the US and contacted the family, and they didn't want anything to do with that for a while, but eventually they did when the kids were about teenagers, and it's about her helping these twins to reconnect. So I didn't end up finishing that part. I felt like it was kind of fluff to fill out and make it long enough to make a, physical nonfiction book. But what was really details about this cultural genocide was till about the 50% mark, and that was really interesting and horrifying. And if you want to know more about adoptions for money and the human trafficking of children, I recommend you follow some grown adoptee accounts. I'll try to find some of the ones that I follow and put them below. Yeah, so it was really dark, but really well written and good information, and I'm really glad that I know this stuff. So you might be wondering what percentage is 10,000 of the children who are adopted between 2000 and 2010? It's about 10%. There are about 100,000 children adopted from China to the US in that period. 4 stars because it was really excellent except for the kind of fluff added at the end. Then a physical book that has already gone back to library, Spellbound. But I don't know why the title is what it is, but I found it because of the title, because I was searching in my library a different book by the same name. And this one came up as well. So I was like, yeah, I'll take that. This is a graphic memoir who is a graphic novel artist, and it's a lot about her year that she took off from work to make her first short story collection in graphic novel format. And interestingly, it is all illustrations of a character that she made up to put in place of herself. So currently is and always has been a lot skinnier than the woman that she draws and has longer hair. But she made up this character and also a different name for this character who is a cis woman, whereas Bikram is a trans woman, and had basically this cis woman living out her life, and everything was the same except that everyone referred to her as a woman, and she just was a cis woman in this very slightly alternate universe. Interesting enough, she didn't figure out she was a trans woman until after all of these panels of her memoir had been written and drawn. So that was really interesting. But yeah, I have experienced a lot of the emotions that she experiences in the memoir because she's taken a year off to devote to art and try to make this a thing that will work for money. And at the time, she doesn't have any money coming in. She's living off her savings from her inheritance. The feeling of not having a job and having people not value your work because you don't have a job that pays, very familiar to me. And also, she has a cat and she watches Star Trek, specifically mentions Deep Space Nine and Voyager, which are my two favorites. So that was really lovely, and I really identified with a lot of stuff that she was talking about in here. I really enjoyed it and thought it was really well done. 5 stars. So those are the 4 new things I read in the month of October. I'm doing much better now in November. Look forward to that. I am reading a bunch of witchy books in November. I kind of missed out on doing that in October because I was in such a reading slump. So I'm taking November and I'm going to do it now. So I already have a few on the docket that I finished. So look forward to my reviews of those next month. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to leave an emoji, how about something green? And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!